Hello and welcome to our Capstone presentation, Love is a Game. We are Joanne Chern and Michelle Lee, students in the Masters of Library and Information Science program. This project is about developing a taxonomy and repository for dating games.
In the scope of our project, dating games are interactive electronic games in which relationship building is the main focus and primary mechanic of the game. Many dating games originate from Japan and are called otome games, literally young maiden games, which refers to their target audience. A very small number of these games is selected each year for English localization. Meanwhile, Western indie companies and creators are also developing dating games that take inspiration from and play off of otome game tropes.
One of our interviewees described dating games as social trainers, which touch on complex, real-world issues such as successfully navigating relationships, achieving healthy emotional intimacy, and exploring gender and sexual identity. Video game mechanics allow the player to be immersed in these narratives and experiment with different communication options. There is only a small amount of research on this topic, and most of it focuses on the few Japanese otome games that have been localized in the US. These games almost exclusively focus on straight relationships. In contrast, there is a wide variety of English-language indie dating games that often respond to the lack of queer relationships in otome games by including a variety of LGBTQIA+ relationships and identities. However, conventional game tagging does not reflect the nuances of the genre, making it difficult for users to achieve specificity when browsing game distribution platforms such as Steam or itch.io.
The University of Washington Gamer Group has developed the Video Game Metadata Schema, or VGMS, and maintains it in order to advance the cataloging practice of these popular cultural artifacts. Our taxonomy serves as an expansion pack to the VGMS, addressing dating game-specific metadata that is not reflected in the original schema. In addition, we created an online repository that will index available English-language dating games in a manner that reflects player information needs. Both our taxonomy and repository will be publicly accessible on the Gamer Group website.
Our taxonomy is based on the VGMS and the National Information Standards Organization, and it is specifically oriented around the common mechanics and tropes of dating games. We then tested this taxonomy against 40-plus games from a variety of sources, iterating the metadata fields as necessary. One such part was the possible attraction types section, previously called sexualities. Because the main playable character's identity can be changed, assumptions have to be made about their sexuality and the sexualities of romanceable characters, which may not be true or accurate. Rather than adhere to commonly used terms such as heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, etc., we pivoted to less specific but more inclusive terms such as same-gender attraction or multiple gender attraction.
We also conducted interviews with dating game players to gain a better sense of how their preferences influence their information behavior when searching for dating games. Interviewees expressed interest in being able to filter games based on content, such as whether a game has queer-identified characters and queer relationships, whether the playable character's appearance and pronouns are customizable, and whether there are warnings for triggering content. This allowed us to identify which metadata fields in our taxonomy would best suit the repository, which is intended for player usage, and which would be more fitting for indexing by game companies.
Our taxonomy is comprehensive but can be selectively adapted for indexing on the front-end user side or on the back-end company side. Here, we use the 2019 game Arcade Spirits, developed by Fiction Factory Games, as a case study to compare our categorization with those of Steam and itch.io. Our taxonomy includes categories for main character customization, storytelling tropes, and possible attraction types, among others. This illustrates that our tagging system is more inclusive of queer-identified players and in-game queer relationships, and increases searchability for players who are interested in these specific themes and mechanics.
From our interviews, we also found that players lack a central resource for discovering dating games and rely on social media or word of mouth. To address this information need, we created a repository that can serve as a central information hub for users, which utilizes our taxonomy to tag the dating games. Visitors to the site have the option to submit a game for review and can also suggest tags to be used in the future, creating a community-based iterative process for our taxonomy.
In the future, we would like to continue adding games to our repository and iterating the taxonomy and repository site accordingly. As the repository expands, we would like to switch from hosting it on WordPress to a more customizable website. We would also consider converting the taxonomy to XML for interested parties, such as game distribution sites, to access and use for their own websites or databases.
Thank you for listening.